Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to discuss, should you pick up Creed's Aventus in 2025? So I've just come on from the back of filming, ranking every single one of my Creed fragrances, and I actually rated Aventus at number 7, which is quite strange because a few years ago, I would have put this up as being my favorite Creed fragrance. So we're going to take this video as an opportunity to kind of delve into, should you buy it? What alternatives are there? Is it worth the money at this point? And just a bunch of different kind of conversations just talking about Aventus. Just before we do, guys, remember, if you are new to the channel, please do not forget to drop a like on this video. It really helps out with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps the channel grow and helps me, make more videos. So please don't forget to drop a like on this video. And if you are new to the channel and you're a fan of fragrances, please don't forget to subscribe as well, because we're growing a really nice fragrance community. And if you enjoy fragrances too, we'd be more than happy to have you on there. So without further ado, we are going to kick things off just talking about Aventus and the history of Aventus really quickly, just to kind of fill you guys in on the history of it since it released in 2010. Released by Olivia Creed, and I think Pierre Bourdon also helped create it, so they're the founders of this beautiful DNA that we know and love. Pineapple, apple, birch, smokiness, ambergris, oak moss, just this beautiful Schiefer fragrance that is just replicated so much. So it came out in 2010, and at the beginning, the House of Creed, known as the fragrance that sources the best materials, the kind of millésime, which kind of means, like the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And they brought out Aventus, and it was supposed to be like an interpretation of what Napoleon or something would smell like, which I can kind of get it, like a kind of like conqueror, manly man smell. And it definitely is that. The smokiness and the pineapple give it this fruitiness, but also this kind of strong sort of masculine sort of scent. And in my opinion, the way how Aventus smells reminds me of like a guy who is just in the forest and he's chopping down trees, and it just has this kind of like sort of pine fresh sort of smell, this greenness to it, especially in the current batches. So it's a very manly smell. I mean, compliment factor is off the charts with Aventus. I remember I actually had this fragrance and also a cologne in 2018, so just kind of as the hype was starting to ramp up and everyone was knowing Sauvage slash Creed, people call it Creed by Aventus, whereas obviously, that's not true, it's Aventus by Creed. So a lot of people that aren't in the fragrance community know about Creed Aventus, and it really helped put Creed's name on the map for the normal consumer. So yeah, Creed's Aventus, it's the most sold niche fragrance, I think, of all time. So it's a very, very popular fragrance. The DNA has been replicated a lot. There are definitely cheap alternatives out there on the market. There are a lot of designer fragrances. One that does come to mind is this fragrance here by Mont Blanc. It's called Mont Blanc Explorer, and very clever by Mont Blanc. And I'm actually going to tell you a little story about the House of Mont Blanc versus Creed. It's quite funny. So yeah, whenever I smell Mont Blanc Explorer, it has got the pineapple, the birch, the oak moss, the smokiness that Aventus has, but this thing kind of takes it more into a fresher, kind of clean designer realm. So this is a much more mass appealing fragrance. It's a lot cheaper too, and it even has a similar design that the Aventus bottle has, with the kind of clearness, the black sort of material on it, and then the kind of gunmetal black sort of cap, which is funny because years and years ago, back in 2002, Mont Blanc released this fragrance, and it was called Mont Blanc Individual, and Creed actually went out, essentially copied this fragrance, almost kind of smell for smell, and released a fragrance called Original Santal. So Mont Blanc made this beautiful fragrance with a million different notes in it, quite synthetic. And then Creed came out, like we spoke about, where they're this house that have the best fragrance notes, the best materials that they can get. And they made Original Santal, and it just kind of overshadowed Mont Blanc Individual. And then years and years later, Mont Blanc actually got their revenge by bringing out Mont Blanc Explorer, and this thing sold like crazy as an alternative to Creed's Aventus, which is just a little funny story I wanted to bring up for you there. So there are alternatives on the market. in the designer realm for quite cheap. Mont Blanc Explorer being one of them, probably the best one in the designer realm that you can get. So that's one thing worth mentioning, is kind of the history of Creed Aventus, and of course the designer options that are out there, Mont Blanc versus Aventus. The next thing I want to bring up is, like we've been speaking about with the best of the best materials, Creed say, and I think they do, to be honest, use a lot of natural ingredients for their fragrances. So you can't really see it that well. I don't actually have a bottle of Aventus, which is quite ironic for this video. But stuff like this one here, Creed's, this is Royal Oud, by the way. Creed's Royal Oud, you might be able to see it if I flip the bottle up and down. It's got a lot of kind of air particles in it, and especially in older bottles of Creed fragrances, you can sometimes see little bits floating around the bottle. And the reason for that is because they used to use actual natural ingredients for their fragrances. And that is why there is such batch variations that you sometimes hear about Aventus, is that the batches change constantly. So I have got a small sample here of Aventus, the original Aventus, and this is a much newer batch, but the older batches that you see turn very yellow. So I've got a bottle of Viking here. You can see just how yellow the juice is of this, and some Aventus, vintage Aventus bottles have got the same colour that this Viking has. So people in the fragrance community, back whenever Aventus first came out, they were using obviously the best of the best materials, and they would use all these natural materials, and that is why most of the juices turn this kind of yellowy colour. And you'll see on eBay and these reselling sites, these original old vintage style bottles going for crazy prices. So much batch variation. Sometimes they say, oh, this is a pineapple batch, this is a smokier batch, and stuff like that. And yeah, it might be true. Yeah, you might have some Aventus batches that smell more pineapple-y, a little bit more blackcurrant. But I don't think that for the prices that they're paying, like £50,000, you should get any of those. So, in my opinion, I don't think you should go out and buy $50,000 worth of a fragrance, no matter what batch it is from Creed. I'd stay away from it. So I'd probably say anything from 2010 up to 2015 is going to be a ridiculous price, and you shouldn't pay for it. I think after that, Creed were kind of starting to ramp up, ready to sell their fragrance. So Olivia Creed was really trying to boost profit margins and, you know, make the balance sheet look as nice as possible. For, I think it was 2018 or 2019, they actually sold out to BlackRock. So BlackRock were this kind of investment company that essentially bought Creed for $1 billion, and then next year, the year after, sold it to Caring for like triple the price or something like that, for $3 billion or some other crazy kind of figure where they made a big profit off the House of Creed. And in those later years, whenever Olivia Creed was making the balance sheet look as nice as possible, he was potentially sacrificing the quality of the materials that they were using, making them a little bit cheaper perhaps, so that the profit margins were looking better and that he could really just bump up the price for the buyout of Creed. So people say that some of those batches between 2017 to 2019 were starting to decline in the quality because they were using, you know, less materials to try and save money. And then everything after 2019, whenever they had BlackRock in charge, in my opinion, that's whenever I think the batches of Aventus were at their worst. I think they just smelled watered down, so watered down. The performance on them, I had a little sample. I bought a 5ml sample back in 2021 of Creed's Aventus, and it was just like water. And it was a reputable seller, so, you know, they definitely didn't water it down. But the smell it just didn't smell the same. I even went into like the Creed boutique and sprayed it on my hand, and the smell of Aventus was gone, and it just wasn't the same smell. So they say now with Caring, the final company that are now selling Creed, so from 2022 onwards, the kind of F batches and stuff like that that you hear people talk about are starting to get back to being what Aventus used to smell like, but it will never be the same, in my opinion. They may have reformulated it. One thing to note as well is with the material side of things is ambergris. It's now, I think it's banned in making fragrances, and they've had to substitute it with ambroxan. So ambergris gives it this salty, sort of creamy saltiness to it.
What do you mean by that?
Which sounds quite strange, but that is what used to be, officially, unofficially, that's what Creed say, used to be in Aventus. So most of the Creed fragrances, Millésime Imperial is definitely a suspect for this, where they used to use real ambergris and they had to substitute it for ambroxan. It just made the fragrance not as good. So I think Creed also went through that. So in my opinion, the best time to buy Creed Creed Aventus would have been anywhere from 2015 up to about 2017. So if you can find a bottle there for a really good price, you should buy it 100%. If it's, like I said, a good price, because that is whenever I think that Creed was still at their strongest. So that's kind of a history on the materials used by Creed and the quality and the decline since 2010 when it first came out, which is, why they're so sought after, because they used the best materials. They were still all owned under Olivia Creed, and from there up until like safely 2015, perfect fragrance. But it's a shame that they're now, $20,000 up to $50,000. So it kind of like, you can't really buy them, sensibly for around that time period. 2015 up to 2017, safely, I'd say would be the best batches that you could get for the best price to return your money. 2018 up to 2019, you might be able to get away with an unwatered down batch, but I could definitely back in the day remember it smelling a little bit watered down. 2020 up to 2022, whenever BlackRock actually bought Creed, just super watered down. The fragrance didn't really smell the same. Aventus didn't smell the same. And now the redemption arc, the ones from Caring are a lot better than those ones. So the newer batches, even though they're better, they are still a little bit watered down. The ambroxan that they're using in it makes the fragrance not smell as good and not perform as good, in my opinion. So that brings us on to alternatives. Like we said, you've got the designer side of things, but you have also got actual clones, and there are a million different clones to choose from, because Aventus is the most popular niche fragrance, so of course it's going to be the most cloned fragrance of all time. And some of the clones that are the most popular are also some of the best, in my opinion. You have got a lot of different clones. There's separate videos that you can watch on what the best Creed clone fragrances are. I'm going to give you two, which in my opinion work really well, even though the smell and the quality of these clone fragrances I'm going to show you is nowhere near Creed's Aventus quality. They solve the big problem of price point, because Aventus is now the most expensive Creed fragrance that you can own, and it also fixes the performance factor. What you are sacrificing though is of course quality being the main one, and especially the opening. These two fragrances in the opening smell like lemon pledge cleaner for the first 15 to 20 seconds, but I like to argue the point that no one is really going to be smelling you as soon as you spray it on. Like for me especially, if I'm going to work, for example, I live about 30 minutes away from work, so I have to travel 30 minutes, so I'll spray it on, and for 30 minutes no one is going to smell me, especially in my room whenever I spray it. That first kind of 5 minutes and the opening, even though it's super harsh, I like to argue the fact that the opening, even though you know it yourself it smells horrible, and it does, especially for these fragrances, no one else is really going to smell it. So it all depends on how you view fragrances. Are you in it for the quality and the artistry of this, or are you solely wanting to get a fragrance because it smells good and you want to get good reactions with it? If that's the case, you can stop this video here, and yeah, you could probably get Aventus right now, and you can respect the quality of it, because I do still think they use really good materials, and it has still got that kind of natural smell that you just can't beat. Especially when you spray it and you smell it really close to your hand, you won't be able to beat the original Aventus, obviously. But if you're part of the other half of people that don't want to spend the crazy prices that Creed are charging, and you just want it for complement factor, I would suggest you can either pick up an alternative, being a designer, which is an interpretation on it, which gives it a more mass appeal, or you could go down the clone route. So I'm going to suggest you two clones here. They're the same. One of them is this one here, Club de Nuit Intense Man. So I actually started using this as a cologne years and years and years ago, and not many people knew about the cologne, which is quite cool because I actually, and yeah, okay, I'm gonna incriminate myself here. I used to say that I was wearing Creed Aventus whenever I was secretly wearing this Club de Nuit Intense Man. So this is the Eau de Toilette version. This is my second bottle of this thing, by the way. And if you've never smelled Creed Aventus before, if you don't live anywhere near a boutique and you don't want to go out and spend, you could probably get a sample of Aventus for like £10–15 for 2 to 5 ml. Instead, you could just kind of spend £30 and just get a full bottle of this, and it gets you in the ballpark for what Aventus smells like. That's what I did back in the day. I bought this to kind of see what the hype of Aventus is all about. So Club de Nuit Intense Man, this will get you about this version here, about 75% similar. Problem with this thing is the opening, it has got a lemon note in here, which is very, very harsh. People compare this to like, you know, lemon wet wipes, lemon cleaner, and they're not wrong. It has got this kind of mineral smell to it that you get from lemon cleaners and stuff. But after that, in the air, this thing has got a really nice scent trail. It's got a really nice sillage. And there's someone that I used to work with that would wear this. And I knew, I literally was like, okay, his name was Gareth. I'm like, Gareth, are you wearing Club de Nuit Intense Man? And he was like, yeah, how can you tell? And I could tell because he would walk like 20 feet away and I would be like walking behind him and I could smell this fragrance. And it leaves such a nice scent trail, which is why this thing gets so many compliments, because the synthetic notes they use in here, you can actually smell them. Whereas with Aventus, the current batches, there isn't too much of that sillage that you get from Club de Nuit Intense Man. The problem with this version of Club de Nuit Intense Man is the quality. It's not the best. Armaf were kind of in their earlier stages when they released this. They did a great job, but the quality wasn't as good as Aventus, let's say. Whereas over time, Armaf have improved their craft a little bit, and they actually released this, which is, again, Club de Nuit Intense Man, but if I show you side by side here, they're slightly different. This one is the Parfum, or the limited edition version, and this, in my opinion, just improves on the original Club de Nuit Intense Man. It gets it a lot closer to Aventus, and it just kind of makes it smell a little bit better. This thing, I would say, is like 85–90% similar. It sorts out a little bit of the problems of the opening, and the compliment factor on this thing is super high. Whenever you smell it close on skin, it smells very similar to Aventus, and you have also got that really nice scent trail, that really nice sillage that you get from the original version. I think I picked up 105 ml for £30, £40 here in the UK, which is an okay price for a cologne that is one of the best Creed Aventus clones that I've found. It does really good for compliments. I mean, it is still a clone, and it's not the best ingredients. They're obviously all synthetic notes in here, I think. But it does great for compliments. I know if I ever want to go out and wear a attention-grabbing compliment factor fragrance, I'll just wear this because I know it's the Aventus DNA, which everyone knows and loves, and it lasts forever. So that's my gripe on Aventus, is it just doesn't seem to last or perform in the current batches. Whereas this stuff, if it's available on the market, it's cheap, it smells very similar, and it performs like crazy and gets good compliment factor. If that's what you're after, there's your answer. You probably don't have to buy this. I would say buy Aventus if you are a fan, like me. If you're a fan of the artistry and stuff like that, then yeah, potentially you should get a bottle. If you are in that category and you've never bought any Aventus before, there are also alternatives in the Creed lineup for, you know, similar Creed prices that you can get that smell similar to Aventus, but they take it in a different direction. So that's the final thing that I'd like to point out is we've covered the history, we've covered the notes and stuff like that, we've covered the current batches of Aventus and the fact that everyone knows what Aventus is now. Maybe in 2025 it's time for a little bit of a change. Maybe it's time to switch it up a little bit and try something a little bit different, but also with that Aventus DNA. Two amazing alternatives here I haven't got a bottle of it, but I have got a little decant of it. And the one that we're talking about, a great alternative. It's a little bit more expensive. It's the most expensive from the Creed lineup. And I got a sample of it here. I will put up a bottle. And the one that we're talking about is this thing here, Aventus Absolute. So this thing takes the Aventus DNA and it kind of does the Sauvage Elixir effect, where it makes it a lot darker, a little bit sweeter, a little bit spicier, and it gives it this kind of heaviness to it, which in terms of fragrance depth and artistry and stuff like that, and just complexity, this thing takes the original Aventus DNA and it just bumps it up a lot more, and there's a lot more stuff to smell and a lot more notes that go into Aventus Absolute. So if you are into the artistry and the perfumery side of things, maybe skip out Aventus and give Aventus Absolute a go. Or if you want something a lot more modern, a lot more compliment factor worthy, and something you can wear every single day, and maybe you've actually had Aventus in the past, and you're looking to pick up another bottle in 2025, I would suggest you pick up an alternative being this, Creed Aventus Cologne, which is a lighter version, a fresher version, if you will. This thing mixes Chanel's Allure Homme Sport and Creed Aventus. So this thing, in terms of compliments and stuff like that, is just off the charts from, you know, mixing those two fragrances together. And to me, even though I've had so much experience with clones and also Aventus by itself, this thing is still unique enough that I can wear it and not get bored of it for now. So this is a great alternative. It's a little bit lighter, it's a little bit more refreshing and a little bit more uplifting than the kind of Aventus DNA. It gives it a little bit more of a fresh twist, which is cool. And again, surprisingly, the performance on Aventus Cologne is amazing from my experience, and it does just as well as definitely the current batches of Aventus, but potentially the same as the older batches. I seem to get great performance with Aventus Cologne, which is another thing just to consider. It's more modern, performance is still good, and the compliment factor is still there, and you get the quality of Creed. So yeah, that's another alternative, is Aventus Cologne. So yeah, that is my take on should you pick up Creed Aventus in 2025. Well, if you watch the video, then it kind of gives you some things to consider: materials, cost, uniqueness, fresh takes on it, like with Aventus Cologne, Aventus Absolute. Or, you know, you can go the complete opposite route, and if you wanted to get compliments and kind of do what I've done and be like, okay, if I'm going to wear Aventus, I'm only going to wear it for compliments and stuff like that, and just bite the bullet and pick up something like this, a clone for cheap. So yeah, guys, that is going to do it for this video. I think I've talked about this for like 27 minutes now. If you want my take in one sentence, you can do whatever you want. But yeah, if you like Aventus, maybe pick up like an older bottle if you can find it for a good price. If not, you know, maybe go out and explore the alternatives. You know, Aventus Cologne is a great shout, in my opinion. I love Aventus Cologne, or Aventus Absolute for the winter. So remember, guys, if you watched up to this point, please don't forget to drop a like in this video. Please don't forget to subscribe as well. If you did watch up to this point, please don't forget to comment too on, you know, what your take on buying Aventus in 2025 is. I would be super interested to know. I want to get a little debate going. What your take on it is. Should you pick it up? Should you not? I mean, Aventus is the most talked about fragrance in the fragrance community. I think there's like a fragrance group which is just focused on like Aventus Lounge or something, and it's got something crazy like 20,000 members in there, which is insane. So there's a lot of love for Creed Aventus, and I'm also part of the people that love it. I mean, hopefully this video didn't portray it as if I don't love it, because I do. I just don't happen to have a bottle of it because I've got alternatives, and I've never really had to because I've always had samples of it. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see my take on other Creed fragrances, then I will leave a video in the suggest at the end of this one that you guys can take a look at, where I rank all my Creed fragrances. So thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.